Good evening, everybody. It's always good to see you around, and this is another wonderful Wednesday for us for MegaMind Plus Academy. As you know, every Wednesday we have a webinar, an online seminar about a topic that we think is interesting for the community and for the world also. For this Wednesday, we have selected an interesting topic and invited an international speaker from Iran. But before introducing him, I would like to say something about MegaMind Plus Academy. MegaMind Plus Academy is an independent academy established as per the laws and regulations of Kurdistan Regional Government, and it works in three levels or three sectors like education, training, and consultancy. And one of our programs is to organize such webinars about topics we think that they are interesting and they lead to change in the way people look at life, in the way education works, and other skills also. So far, we have organized 8 seminars. This will be the 9th online webinar that we have created and we have organized. This is the first one to be in English. We thought that this would be a good change to have a webinar at least in our first season in English for the English-speaking community in the region and in the neighboring countries also, because we have people from all over the country. We have people from Erbil, from Hawler, from Suleymaniye, from Duhok, Soran, Halabja, from Basra, and from other cities, and even from Iran. We have some people joining us also. So I'm sure there will be many more to join us during our webinar going on for around 1 hour and a half. Our guest speaker, Mr. Javad Gholami, will be talking about 50 to 60 minutes, and then there will be questions and answers after that. Mr. Javad Gholami is an associate professor of applied linguistics, TESOL, at the Department of English Language at Urmia University in Iran. And he is also the co-editor of the Journal of Teacher Education for Sustainability, a UNESCO-affiliated journal in Latvia, and the director of the International Relations Office at Urmia University. He received his BA, MA, and PhD in English language teaching from Kharazmi University, Tehran University, and Tabriz University, respectively. His main publications and research studies have been an incidental focus on form, task-based language teaching, teacher education, academic writing, English for research publication purposes, and convenience editing of research articles. His most notable research papers have been published in leading journals on applied linguistics, such as Language Teaching Research, English for Specific Purposes, and Language Learning Journal. As for his social and local commitments, he has been very active as a teacher trainer and teacher education, contributing to the professional development of EFL teachers by conducting teacher training courses and theme-based workshops. He is also the managing director of Viray Shiar Center for Language and Editing in Iran. It is we are very pleased and honored to receive Associate Professor Javad Gholami from Urmia University. Sir, the floor is yours.
Yes, in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Dr. Hemdad, do you have my voice?
Yes, please. Yes, sir.
Very good, very good. Thank you for your nice introduction and also setting up this event. It's a great privilege for me to be in this community of English language teachers, both professors, graduate students, and also the high school teachers, and maybe many other people who have been in English teaching business. In fact, the first time I'm having a meeting with this community, and it's wonderful. We have had students from Kurdistan region at Urmia University, and as the Director of International Relations, and also an Associate Professor of English Department, I felt very pleased to meet some of the students from your region, and I know that you have been a very key figure in improving the quality of English language teaching in Kurdistan region, and I know a lot of maybe professors and maybe the staff of the universities, they have been a product of your contribution. So I'm very happy that I'm having this meeting under the auspices of the MegaMind Plus Academy. I think that I just had this sentence, Rezu Salavun Haya Evari Tanbash. Okay, so everybody, today I decided to choose this topic, okay, I think that is a macro issue that I think that maybe all of us as teachers, we need to be reminded about what are the principles of instructed language learning. Let me clarify this title, that by instructed language learning, we mean educational settings, not those who, for example, immigrate to English-speaking countries, those who maybe grow up in those environments, or, for example, in ESL environments. We are talking about foreign language situations like the situation in Iraq, in Iran, in many, let's say, countries in the Middle East that we can consider, okay. And and as Dr. Himdat mentioned, okay, I am from Urmia University, and you are most welcome to come to Urmia University and visit this beautiful campus, and we would be very happy, both Amir and I, okay, are involved in welcoming you to Urmia University, okay, and this is also the link for English language department that I do like, okay, because I know that people here are mostly majored in English language teaching, okay, either as professors or as students, okay, and so this is okay. A brief introduction about our English department. We have BA programs in English language teaching, so what is called in the world TESOL or TEFL or Applied Linguistics. We have also another BA program just in English literature. We are one of the rare universities in Iran that we have a special teaching program for our BA also. So for the Ministry of Education, if in Kurdistan region, if there is they welcome the idea of bringing up English teachers with a specialization in teaching, even in their undergraduate program. I think that this is also, our university also would be pleased to get involved in those efforts. We have an MA program in English language teaching, again, or the other, let's say, versions of the same field, and plus English literature. We have also a PhD program, again, in just English language teaching, or TESOL or Applied Linguistics. And the PhD program is in two modes. It could be by coursework or by research. So if anyone is interested, later at the end of the program or later on through my email or Skype or WhatsApp, we can provide more information on that. Our department also is hosting a very important prestigious journal, Iranian Journal of Language Teaching Research. It's an Scopus index journal. It's also covered in ISI for emerging sources, but in Scopus, it's a Q1 with a very good standing in the Middle East and maybe among English language teaching journals.
Very good.
I also hope that this pandemic has not affected your lives personally, okay? And I know that there have been a lot of losses around us, and we teachers maybe hear about our students, their families, okay? And maybe our own families are involved in one way or another. So I really hope that we all manage this pandemic and we come out of it safe and sound, and we weather this storm. So I do pray for all those teachers. I know that teaching means meeting people, interacting with them, talking to them. So we are very vulnerable, I think, people, maybe among many other jobs. So I hope that my colleagues in Kurdistan region stay safe and observe the protocols for that, and also we get rid of this pandemic hopefully this year. Doctor, is everything fine? Should I continue?
Yes, sir. Go on. Go on, sir.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Yes. Okay. The topic is in fact related to the umbrella concept of glocalization. That what is called think globally, act or teach locally. You know, for a long time in our field and among many others, there was a sort of prescription. Things were prescribed to English teachers around the world, do this, do this. It was like a ordering, okay? And later they thought about maybe exporting what they do in Western countries through the books and things to maybe around the world. However, in recent years, there has been this concept of glocalization, that you have both globalization, you have both localization, and you try to merge them, these two. You try to reconcile these two concepts, and at this, while you are keeping an eye on the global trends, global principles, but it's up to you as a teacher to see how to translate these concepts into action in your own region, in your own class, in your own school environment. For example, there are so many local factors that they should be taken into consideration in devising, in creating an optimal learning environment. And so you can't simply borrow ideas from other places, no matter what they are, and exactly apply them in your own context. So you have to find ways to translate, to localize these global ideas into. With this in my mind, I'm giving this lecture, in fact, okay? And these three pictures somehow capture the notion of globalization and localization. As you see on the right picture, you see a lot of elements of localization. The talk is mostly inspired by this seminal paper from Rod Ellis. I have already emailed it to Dr. Imdad, and he could share the article with you as well, maybe through the emails or a common group you may have. This is a seminal paper, and it's so popular. It has been so popular in English language teaching that more than 5-6 journals published it. They borrowed from each other, like System, Language Learning, RELC, and Digest, and many others, okay? And the talk centers around, and the article centers around 10 principles that these 10 principles can act as guiding stars for teachers. They can really help them to see how they are functioning in their classes, in which areas they are focusing well, they are doing well, in which areas they need to do something more, in which areas they need to plan better, in which areas they are not planning at all. So I would say that we have 10 commandments of Moses, what they say in Farsi, 10 farman Musa, okay? I would say that the same 10 guiding stars are here. So as a teacher, we can see that, yeah, these 10 guiding stars can guide me in my classes. And the school can check them, the teacher can check them to see that how well you are observing these 10 principles in your classes. So I hope that with this in your mind, okay, with these 10 principles, you can check your own classes and how you are doing. Now, we come to principle number 1. It says that instruction, it means in an EFL classes, needs to ensure that learners develop a rich repertoire. Repertoire means collection, a set of formulaic expressions, and a rule-based competence. Now, I will explain more about what they are. Formulaic expressions, every language learner has available to him or her a large number of semi-pre-constructed phrases that constitute single choices. Language is not just single words. Sometimes we have clusters of words. We have, let's say, bundles, okay, groups of words. So that you say that it really helps learners that these formulaic expressions, first, they are part of the language. We can't always break language into single words. There are sometimes phrases, there are sometimes idioms, there are sometimes pre-constructed phrases. You will see some examples. But why formulaic expressions? Formulaic expressions are necessary for fluency. And if you want to speak more fluently, you need to draw upon such body of language knowledge in your mind. Native speakers use use a wide variety of formulaic expressions. If you see a native speaker speaking more fluently than a non-native speaker, we can partially attribute it to this feature that they have available to themselves a larger range of formulaic expressions. And classroom studies show that learners often internalize rote learned materials as chunks. If you look at young learners, elementary learners, or adults who are starting a language learning at the beginning, you see that mostly they memorize what they are given. So you see that the whole conversation, the whole sentence, okay, or a good maybe phrase they like, and they keep a memorized form they present. So it means that this is the beginning of language learning for them. And this principle says that don't be upset about it. Be happy about it. Welcome it. Promote it in your classes. The journey, a good journey of language learning is start with a lot of memorized expressions, a lot of formulaic language. And then say that learners may develop rules through analyzing memorized chunks. It means that little by little, the rules will emerge in their mind. As they memorize a lot of such patterns and, let's say, expressions, little by little, the brain can infer, can guess the rule. So what is, you know, we have in English teaching in grammar, deductive approach to grammar teaching, inductive. This is usually discussed in one session, but this principle say that they can develop it in longer terms. So the grammar may emerge later on. And what about the rule-based competence? By rule-based competence, we mean grammar, system of the language, okay? Their grammatical competence. We traditionally deal with grammar, with focus on forms approach. And I know that in Iran and both in Iraq and in Kurdistan region, still we have focus on forms approach. Still we have a lot of teachers who teach mostly language, decontextualized. They may translate a lot. They may just explain grammar a lot. This is present perfect. This is simple past. How could check this sentence? Is it true or false? Okay, could you give me an example of a past sentence? These are all focused on forms approach. And however, these principles say that don't rush for teaching grammar. Teaching of grammar can be delayed until later. Do not act as grammar police in your classes. Welcome the opportunities for your students that to develop grammar gradually. Now, in principle number 1, let's see what suggestions, what advice do we have for teachers. The first advice is that teach formulaic expressions first. If you're dealing with young learners that try to emphasize more things, not force them to memorize everything, but if they do and if they can handle it, don't worry, because that is the beginning of developing grammar, and you have to wait and you have to be patient until good grammar emerges. Teach grammar later. Focus on functions and pragmatic purposes of language, like introductions, greetings, goodbyes, invitations, I don't request. And if you look at a lot of books for young learners, you would see that such themes keep appearing. And the writers of those books do not expect the students to fully appreciate grammar of what they cover. So that is a good, let's say, a guideline for the teacher to adopt a similar approach. We come to principle number 2. Instruction needs to ensure that learners focus predominantly on meaning. This is a key suggestion for the Middle East. I'm not saying just Iran. I'm not just saying Kurdistan region. I'm saying that most of the Middle East, English classes in the Middle East, they focus less on meaning. But this principle says that, hey, teacher, make sure that most of your class activities are meaning oriented, are communication oriented. Look at this boy happily laughing. This is a true communication. If you just show for example, a book, see that what is this, and students say a book, okay, what is this? They say a book. They are not going to laugh then, because it's not a meaning-oriented activity. But this principle say that make sure that most of your teaching, most of your class activities center around meaning-oriented activities, where there is an element of joy, there is a good communication, there is information gap, there is motivation and interest, okay? Look at this picture. You see, I just searched for the word meaningful interaction and it came up with this picture. I liked it, okay? That these boys are sitting in this way, it means there's something going on. There's an interaction going on. Of course, we don't mean this interaction, we mean real talking in English classes. Now, why meaning-oriented interaction? Because optimal learning condition is created when learners are engaged in decoding, means understanding, and encoding means speaking or writing messages in the context of actual acts of communication. So the more authentic types of communication you establish in your classes, the more you are getting into the business of meaning-oriented teaching. Pragmatic meaning has been proven to lead to true fluency in an L2 learner. If you have real meaning-oriented activities, little by little, they are going to gain true fluency. And tasks aimed at creating pragmatic meaning are intrinsically motivating. If you do meaning-oriented activities, your students would love your classes. They would feel very happy. They would see that, yeah, it's like a real communication. So yeah, for example, have your grandparents got married. If I'm going to talk about this story or my parents, my classmates are going to listen much better. Rather than if I say, okay, in this book, okay, for example, it talks about Alice, okay, and Alice did this like this, okay, so it's like echoing what is in the book. So it's going to be less meaningful. Of course, we are not saying that your whole class should be like this, but make sure that you include such elements in your classes. And the more you succeed in including and incorporating such activities in your classes are going to be intrinsically more motivating for your learners. They would really feel very happy about it. They wouldn't really, I remember many years ago, I had a TTC booklet. I wrote to the teachers that I recommended that. Make sure that your classes are so enjoyable and engaging that your students forget that they are in an English learning class. The exchange of information is happening so well and interestingly that they are not well aware that they're learning English. That's the only motive, in fact, they come to this class. So this is a nice picture showing the distinction between the acquisition and learning, okay? And as you know, in Krashen's ideas, acquisition is a natural, is a meaning-oriented environment, and learning is a very artificial, is decontextualized, is mostly language-oriented activities, okay? And if you look at these, you see that this is a very nice, healthy learner, and this is a very sick and unhealthy learner, okay? Why? Because this learner is having conscious learning. A lot of grammar and rules are given. The language is taught in a very complicated manner. So the output is not very good, but if you look at the picture on the left side, you see they pick up language. They use it very naturally, okay? And also it's very subconscious. Mostly children learn language like this. So instead, try to see how much your class looks like the left picture, how much your class looks like a right picture. And if it is very much right picture, so you have to change your class. You have to move to the other side as much as possible. We come to principle number 3, okay? It says that instruction needs to ensure that learners also focus on form. The second principle was saying meaning, but this principle also said that keep an eye on form. By form, here we mean any aspect of language, grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary, even pragmatic functions of the language. If you say something is formal or something is informal, again, you are focusing on language. So this principle is saying that that make room for form, but meaning oriented. This poor polar bear did not see this sign, watch for eyes. This principle highlights the importance of attention. If learners are paying attention to something, they are more likely to learn it faster. It facilitates good learning. When we have two types of focus on form, one is called intensive
This is what mostly we teach in classes, because the books we choose for our students, they already have pre-selected linguistic forms. For example, imagine this book says that we are teaching present continuous, for example. So this is a pre-selected, and most of the class activities, the reading, grammar activities, they are focusing on that linguistic structure. However, we can have focus on form, which is extensive in its nature. Here, we give incidental attention to form through correcting our students' errors. Maybe sometimes they are speaking very communicatively. Some of them make a mistake, so we correct them, we help them. Or we have preemptive focus on form. By preemptive, it means that they are not making a mistake. They ask for help, or we as teachers know what they know and what they don't know. So within good communication they are having, if there's a part that they pause or we think that they don't know, we may clarify something for them. So that's called preemptive. Preemptive is a synonym for preventive. We have preventive medicine. We have also preemptive focus on form. Usually experienced teachers know very well what their students know and what they don't know, so they can provide help. Or sometimes students, before making a mistake, they ask for help. Hey teacher, what do we say, for example, for, I don't know, this object in English? So this is a preemptive. And I have here, I don't know, some activities, okay, and I wonder whether we can do it in this group or not. I have a few questions throughout my lecture, and all you need to do is to write 1 standing for more and 2 standing for less. And the first question from you is that if you check your own classes, if you reflect on your classes, are your classes mostly meaning-oriented or language-oriented? If you write meaning-oriented, are more frequent than or less frequent than? So if you don't mind, in the chat box, you can write either 1 or 2, so we can see that in different places you write and you teach, whether your classes are more meaning-oriented or less meaning-oriented. And I know that there are many situations you are teaching. Maybe some of you are teaching at university, so you have a lot of meaning. Some of you are teaching in maybe high school. Your students do not have a good background in English. You may have more. Okay, I'm very happy to see that we have a lot of ones, okay, that we get, okay, and we have also, let's say, also cases of, let's say, 2. Okay, and thank you for your responses. Okay, it's really good. If you like, continue that. Okay, and thanks for your cooperation. I get very happy to see lots of numbers here, and it shows that my voice is reaching you. Okay, and that's really great to know that. Okay, and thank you very much. Okay, I know that there can be many reasons why we have 2, why we have 1. In fact, this glocalization says this: is that don't prejudge a teacher. There can be many reasons, many limitations, many factors. Okay, if you are preparing your students for a language-oriented test, which is typical of Iran, maybe for university entrance exam, you may teach mostly language-oriented because that's how your learners are going to be assessed. So you may include a lot of less meaning activities because that's what the exam is asking for. So I mean, I'm not blaming if somebody writes 2 or 1, but I want to say that if we want to have more sustainable English language teaching, if we want to have more competent language learners in future, that they speak well, they write well, we have to include more elements of 1. We have to go toward that. And if we have problems with our exams, which I will come to in my last principle, we have to change our exams as well. Because after all, teaching meaning-oriented activity is well proven in the world that they are more long-lasting, they are more durable. They really empower people to communicate well, and that's why people are coming to language learning classes. They do not want to just pass grammar tests. They do not want just to satisfy their parents. Okay, they want to learn to communicate well, to express themselves well, and that's really why in our countries, in your region, in Iran, okay, a lot of families are really spending a lot of time and money and encouraging their kids to start learning English because they know that it's a gateway to their academic progress. There are many opportunities for them within the country if they move to other countries, okay? So they think that many new opportunities would become open for them. So this is what we should serve and what we should keep in our mind. Thank you for your very, very nice comments, okay? Okay, Amir, thank you very much. Okay, in principle number 5, okay, Amir جان تو وسط این 5 تا پرینسیپل هم یه چند دقیقه خدمتتون خوشحال میشیم که صحبت کنید. So you can continue a little listening to me, okay? Thank you very much. Okay, principle number 4 says that instruction needs to be predominantly directed at developing implicit knowledge of the L2 while not neglecting explicit knowledge. This is a very beautiful expression, principle. Let's see what is implicit knowledge. Implicit knowledge of language is called procedural knowledge. Those who know how to drive, if you can drive a car very well, it means that you have this procedural knowledge. You know how to do it in action. Maybe you can't talk driving well. Maybe you can't train someone else to train well. But when you get behind the wheel, you drive very well. It means that your knowledge of driving is procedural in nature. So this is what is meant by implicit knowledge. It is accessed by means of automatic processes. You can automatically access that knowledge. It's unconscious or subconscious. You're not well aware of that. Think about the grammar of Kurdish in your mind. Maybe you can't describe the grammar of Kurdish. It's your mother tongue. It's the same for me for Turkish. Azerbaijani Turkish, I may not be able to explain its grammar very well, okay? But I know it. I speak very well. That's a better body of knowledge because that body of knowledge is implicit knowledge. This principle is saying that try to promote this type of knowledge for learning English. Like the knowledge of language you have for your mother tongue, okay? It's not verbalizable. You may not be able maybe to explain very clearly. You see, a lot of people who, if you ask a lot of native speakers who are not English teachers, they may not able to verbalize the grammar of their own language. Now, this principle is saying that the goal of teaching an L2 or English should be to develop implicit knowledge of language. What about explicit knowledge? Explicit knowledge of language is declarative. Declarative means facts about language. You can talk about it. You can verbalize it. You can say, hey, look at this sentence. It's a present, for example, perfect sentence. It's a conditional sentence. This body of knowledge is explicit knowledge. It's accessed through controlled processing. It's conscious and it's verbalizable. By verbalizable, it means that you can use meta language. You can talk about it. You can speak about that body of knowledge. So what is the function of this explicit knowledge? It can be as a starting point for the development of implicit knowledge. You may start with explicit knowledge, but hopefully your ultimate goal is to develop implicit knowledge, or as a means of developing awareness of what needs to be learned and facilitating the processes involved in developing implicit knowledge. So what is called consciousness raising? You just raise consciousness through explicit activities. If you look at, for example, some books like American English Fund, top-notch books that they are popular in Iran, I don't know how well they are appreciated there. Some language parts are highlighted, are underlined, or they are in different color because they want to raise learners' consciousness about them, okay? This is a very beautiful picture. I want you, if you like, with your mobile or with your laptop, take a screenshot of this, okay? That if you look at the body of knowledge we have about our language, whether English or any other language, this shows the proportion of explicit knowledge and the proportion of tacit or implicit knowledge. And with this picture, which is called the tip of the iceberg. In fact, what you see in this picture is an iceberg. The hidden part of iceberg is the biggest part of the iceberg, is the gigantic and huge part. In fact, in Titanic ship, they made this mistake. They saw a small piece of ice. They assume that it's not a big deal. This big ship can easily crush that ice and move on. But in fact, the ice could crash the ship because below that tip of ice, there was a mountain of ice. Okay, now, so this mountain shows the size of that, and in psychology, they use this metaphor a lot. This picture shows that our knowledge of language, the biggest part of that knowledge of the language is the implicit knowledge. And a very small part of the body of that knowledge is explicit. This is a recommendation, a guide, and advice for teachers that this much attention you should give in your classes to explicit knowledge, and this huge implicit knowledge, this proportion of attention should be given to implicit knowledge in our classes. And I would say that mostly it's the other way around. In most of the language classes, we give more attention to explicit knowledge, and we give little room for the development of implicit knowledge of language. Okay, now I come to task 2, that in my classes, okay, which one gets the primary focus? Explicit or declarative knowledge, or implicit procedural knowledge? So 1 stands for explicit declarative knowledge of language, and 2 for implicit knowledge of language. So let's have a bit more 1 and 2 here again here, okay? So check your own classes and see that how much you give attention to explicit knowledge in your classes, how much you give attention to implicit knowledge in your classes. Yeah, that's okay, very good. Okay, very good. So we have again very nice people, okay, and I see, okay. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a lot of 2s again, so that's really good. Okay, I'm very happy that, okay, I think that you are doing very well. Congratulations. Okay, well done. And I know that, okay, there can be also, I'm sure that explicit knowledge as well. Okay, I know I have a copy of your books, okay, for high school system Sunrise series, okay, and I do have I'm grateful to Rabin, okay, an MA student from Kurdistan region, who provided these books to me. Okay, it's really great. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, I go to principle number 5. Before I talk about number 5, Dr. Himdat, could we give just a few minutes to Amir to just have a little greeting? Okay.
Sorry, I think it is better to be at the end because people are now into the topic, so I don't want to interrupt that.
Okay, okay, thank you very much.
Let it be at the end, to the end.
Sure, thank you very much. Okay, yeah, sure.
Welcome,
okay, you are right.
Go on.
So let's thank you. Continue with the lecture. Okay, so we come to principle number 5. Instruction needs to take into account the learner's built-in syllabus. Look at the keywords that I have just put in, let's say blue for you. Okay, learner's built-in syllabus. That this principle says that every learner has a built-in syllabus. In their mental structure, there is a syllabus there, and that syllabus is ever-changing, keeps developing, okay? And what we have even in English language teaching, what is called the idea of interlanguage, that they just are getting a little away from their mother tongue, and little by little they are absorbing and achieving more elements of L2. So always they are juggling and moving and trying to get rid of L1 and have it as an independent system, and little by little develop, okay, their L2. And there's a built-in syllabus, okay, and there have been some studies called natural order hypothesis we have, and there was a sequence of acquisition. There have been some more field studies by Larson Freeman that they showed that no matter you are learning English in Japan, in Korea, in Iran, in Iraq, in Turkey, wherever, there's a certain sequence that all these English learners go through. For example, if you consider different types of S, third person, plural S, possessive, there's a sequence that they are picking on and learning, and this sequence is called learner's built-in syllabus. And very happily, when I was looking at the Sunrise books, I noticed that there have been very good, let's say, material developers behind these books, okay, and they have tried to observe this sequence and the difficulty level of them. So I do appreciate all those people in the Ministry of Education, or maybe the Ministry of Science, that they got involved in the development of these books, okay, for your region. Now, what are the possibilities, teaching possibilities of learners built-in syllabus? This principle, what we learn is that ensure that learners are developmentally ready to acquire a specific target feature, that they should be ready. So this principle says that make sure that learners are developmentally ready to acquire a specific target feature. A target feature means any language, okay, any grammatical structure or vocabulary. And this is what I want to emphasize, that I don't know how well placement exams are taken in your region, okay? And this shows the importance of placement exams, doing some interviews with learners before you are enrolling them for a course, giving them a written exam, okay, spending some time with the learners to see where they are and at which level they are, and maybe even within the first 1 or 2 sessions to reshuffle these students. Maybe some students should be taken to a higher level, some students to a lower level. So check your learners. Do not say that this is, for example, I don't know, even in different regions with different backgrounds, with different learners. So take placement exams very seriously. It's going to help you to approximate your classes to the built-in syllabus of the learners. There is a concept for teachers. It's called level adaptation. You can adapt your level to students' class if you are well aware of their built-in syllabus. Now, we come to principle number 6, okay? We are finished almost half of them, and I would go a bit faster, so hopefully we could have more time for question and answer. Principle number 6 would say that successful instructed language learning requires extensive L2 input. And as you see here, we have different sources of input these days. Fortunately, these days, for this generation, there are multiple sources of input. There are many ways that they can really get the input and benefit from it, okay? So this principle is saying that, okay, that make sure that they have extensive L2 input, okay? And you know, extensive listening, extensive reading, okay? And you see, fortunately, young people and students these days, they have access to iPhone, iPod, iPad, and poor fathers says that I paid, huh? So fathers are being charged to provide all these facilities and, let's say, gadgets for their children, and there's no excuse to say that I don't have access to input. Input is well available now through satellite TVs, through smartphones, laptops, tablets, I don't know, newspapers. So many channels exist, okay, for let's say input these days, okay. And these principles in first language acquisition, it has been well shown that the amount and quality of input affect the speed of acquisition of children. Even for mother tongue learning, those families, they have rich linguistic input, their children develop a better competence of the language. And in second language acquisition, SLA, more exposure or extensive input is equal to more and faster language learning. And there has been positive correlations between the amount of reading and listening somebody does and the proficiency level, the language competence of that person. So what are the lessons for us? The lessons are these: maximize the use of L2 inside the class. Try to minimize the use of Kurdish in your classes. In Sunrise books, I saw that for teaching grammar, Kurdish has been recommended. I would say that if you are having a type of learners that if you explain in English, if you use examples in English, they can understand it. You are giving them more opportunities for output. So you can reduce the load of Kurdish even in teaching grammar. Create opportunities for students to receive input outside the class environment. This is a very beautiful suggestion. Most of English teachers or EFL teachers think that my job is limited to the class. I would say no, that is not the case. You have two responsibilities. You have two syllabuses, one for the class, the other one is for home. The other one is for outside class. So check that, how much you are emphasizing your outside class program, how much you are helping your learners to have a systematic program outside class. How much are you promoting extensive reading, like graded stories? How much are you encouraging exposure to authentic materials outside class time, internet, movies, soap operas, okay, sitcoms, radio programs, TV programs in English. This is a very important point, and this is why a lot of people may not develop a very good ability in English. If the only input students receive is in the context of a limited number of weekly lessons, let's say 2 sessions per week, 3 sessions per week, based on some course book or course books, 1 or 2 books, they are unlikely means impossible, to achieve high levels of L2 proficiency. For example, check this link, okay? I have already also emailed my PowerPoint to Dr. Himdad, both the PDF and the PowerPoint file, and he is free. I do encourage him to share it with anyone interested in this presentation and topic, okay? Look at, for example,
we
this
are going
link.
to do that, no worries. We are going to
Thank you very much,
share
sir.
them. Yeah.
Thank you. BreakingNewsEnglish.com. For example, check how many rich resources are available for teachers there. There are news in 5 levels, like elementary level news, intermediate level news, upper intermediate. So imagine your learners keep reading such things. Even just Google News, okay? Google News has got health section, science section. I don't know. For my IELTS and TOEFL students, I do encourage them to go to the science section of Google News, health section. Most of the TOEFL, IBT, and IELTS passages are very similar to those texts. In fact, they take from such sources and develop the test. Now we come to principle number 7, so that we can finish a bit on time, hopefully. Successful instructed language learning requires opportunities for output. The previous principle asked for input. This principle asks for output. Make sure that your students have a good amount of speaking and writing. You can't just watch people playing football and become a player. The same goes for language learning. Output has many functions. Okay, it helps to automatize existing knowledge. If you remember, we had procedural knowledge of language, or implicit. That procedural knowledge means automatize. You may go to driving classes. They may give you a lot of tips and ideas, but you have to sit behind the wheel and practice, no matter how difficult it is to learn driving. The same goes for language learning. It provides opportunities for learners to develop discourse skills, for example, by producing long terms. Usually in our classes, we give very short opportunities for learners to say something. We have very short exchanges, what is called initiation, response, and feedback. You just ask something, they give a short answer, you give a feedback, you move on to the next students. But if you promote output in your classes, your students would have larger stretches of language, that they would have longer terms. Imagine they give a short lecture, they do a discussion, they just give a summary of something, okay, for example. It's important for helping learners to develop a personal voice by steering or taking conversations to topics that they are interested in. If you have more output-oriented classes in class, little by little, students will take the topics to the areas they like. So you have to, and they would show more interest because it's about something they really like to talk about it. It provides the learners with auto input. Learners listen to themselves. Learners are watching their own saying. So this is called inner speech, that they speak to themselves. And in this process, they are going to improve and they are going to correct even what's called self-correction. This is my own motto in my classes. Outside class time is mostly for input getting. My class times are mostly for output giving. Or if they do writing outside in the class, we correct them in the class. So I try to maximize output in the class, especially in our region, that we don't have a lot of main native speakers in the city to talk to. We don't meet a lot of people from other countries, okay, maybe. So of course, even such barriers have been overcome. If you go to, for example, I don't know, websites like speaking24.com, you can find a lot of people from other countries, even native speakers, and keep talking with them. They would really be very happy to speak with you on any topic you are interested. So if you, for example, even you can find people to give output outside class, thanks to the technologies, thanks to a lot of maybe social media, which are available easily for people. We come to principle number 8. Just these are the last 3. The opportunity to interact in the L2, it means second language L2, is central to developing L2 proficiency. Interaction is the key. Look at this teacher. Just the teacher is like a backseat driver. And these 2 students are interacting with one another. This principle say that this interaction is key to developing language proficiency. Make sure that you have a lot of interactions in your classes, either in the form of pair work, in the form of group work, in the form of discussions, whatever, but interaction is key to developing language knowledge. And there's a interaction hypothesis by Mike Long. Is asking that through interactions, people negotiate for meaning. And this negotiation for meaning helps acquisition, aids acquisition. It makes input more comprehensible. If there's an ambiguity, if there's a part they don't understand, they ask for clarification. They negotiate meaning. If they don't know what is, for example, going on a strike, what is noise pollution, they ask, what do you mean by noise pollution? And then you clarify it. So through negotiation, through interaction, this happens. They improve their own speech output modification, and they scaffold each other, they support each other, hopefully, okay? And this brings us to the importance of how much teacher and student interaction should we have? How much student talking time is going on in our classes? How much teacher talking time is going on in your classes? If you have more teacher talking time, you will not have, you will have less time for student talking time. So see that what type of, let's say, scenario exists in your classes, okay? I have here a question I ask you. Who needs to practice silence in English classes? Teachers or learners, in your view? Please write either T or E. Sorry, T or L. T standing for teachers or learners. Think about your English classes. Do you need to practice more silence in your classes or your students, okay? So please write either T or L, huh? Let me see the chat box, okay? Yeah, I see it, okay, very good. So let's see, okay. Oh, very good, okay, great, wonderful, thank you very much, okay. So you see that, yeah, okay, of course we have, okay. So Ashna, you say that, okay, learners need to practice silence, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, but a lot of people say teachers, okay, exactly. In fact, that's what I want to convey. Teachers need to practice silence. And I see my son's school classes, I see that, most of the time the teacher's talking, just briefly the microphones are on for students, and these poor kids are full energetic and they are ready to talk, they are dying to get an opportunity, and then the teacher gets really tired. I'm sorry to just take a bit more time, but let me tell you one anecdote, okay? I had once a teacher, a very energetic, active teacher in Tabriz, okay? And where I was working in then, okay? I observed her classes as supervisor. I was the education manager. And then I told this, and she was really doing very beautifully, very hardworking, very studious, okay? And then I told this lady that, okay, that, ma'am, after observing her class, you would lose your voice in 1 or 2 years. And she was young, single, just hoping to have a beautiful dream life, okay? She said, oh my God, really? I said, yeah, that's all I can give you. All I wanted her to do was to reduce her teacher talking time. This teacher time, reducing it and managing your class well, finding ways to engage your students well, so that you maximize average student talking time in your classes. Through this measure, you would find that you are also enjoying your job more. You don't get tired, you don't get exhausted. At the end of the day, you don't say, oh my God, I'm going to just go to hospital rather than home. I feel that, okay, I just only need to go home and sleep, for example, okay? Then you will feel that you have the battery still. Because why? You just managed your class well, okay? And I want to give this metaphor. This is Iranian football team a few years ago. In fact, it was the heyday of Iranian football team. This team went to, I think, World Cup, and I think, okay, and most of these people are now somehow coaches. I would say that be the coach in your classes. You may act sometimes as players or spectators, but see that, are you playing as a coach? A coach doesn't play all the time. A coach doesn't take the lead in class. A coach guides the class. It's like a backseat driver. So see how much you are functioning like that. If you are doing that, it means that you have to have a lot of interaction in your classes. You have to have a lot of output in your classes. We come to principle number 9. Instruction needs to take into account individual differences in learners. Look at the colors of individual. I just intentionally put them in different colors to show that no matter how much we do placement test well, no matter how the school is trying to have a similar range of students, still there's a big variety in our classes. Some students say that, hey teacher, go faster. Some students are saying that, hey teacher, please slow down. I can't keep up with the rest, okay? So be well aware of these individual differences. We have the idea of multiple intelligences. Some people are nature smart, some people are people smart, some people are picture smart. So we have different types of intelligences, okay? I have one teacher, okay, my MA class, Ms. Josque, okay? I saw her very nice pictures and videos about her classes, and I really enjoyed that, how well she's trying to accommodate these different types of intelligences in her classes in Erbil, I guess, okay? So we have this left and right brain. Do not have all your class activities left hemisphere oriented. Make sure that some of your class activities are right hemisphere oriented as well. Now we come to principle number 10, just I guess 5 more minutes and I'm over. Okay, in assessing L2 learners, I'm sorry, I had 2 very beautiful videos. Okay, later on, Dr. Hemdad would make it available. They are related to individual differences and also having this cycle of giving input and then output. Okay, and I'm sure that you would really, after watching it, you could easily relate it to my lecture and the content of this PowerPoint, hopefully. Last principle is related to exams, to our testing. You can't have communicative teaching without communicative testing. If your exams are problematic, your teaching also would be problematic. So this principle says that in assessing L2 learners' proficiency, it is important to examine free as well as controlled production. By free production, we mean like speaking, like general speaking, like open topic, and you see that, okay, for example, how do you think the winter will be this year? It's a free topic. You have to just check your own mind, your prediction, and then come up, okay? But if I say that, for example, which one of these sentences is comparative structure? And she, yeah, this book is heavier than the other book. Yeah, it's okay. This is a controlled production. So this principle says that make sure that your exams in assessing L2 learners, you have both free production as well as controlled production. And there are 4 types of measurement or assessment based on Norris and Ortega. One is called metalinguistic judgment, like grammaticality judgment test, like true, false, I don't know which is wrong, what is right. Selected responses, like multiple choice answers. We have a lot of exams, huh? They are multiple choice in nature. They're constraint responses, okay? It means short answers, like filling in the blanks or completing some, let's say, closed passages, okay? If you look at FCE exam, it has got a lot of constraint constructed responses. And finally, we have free constructed responses. They are very much communicative in their nature. If you look at IELTS interview, it's free constructed response. Okay, now, this principle says that magnitude of the effect of instruction, if you give explicit knowledge to your students, you can improve their scores in number 1, in number 2, and in number 3 very easily. You can coach them for that exam. What's called in testing washback effect or backwash effect, that the testing does really impact your teaching. And you can easily prepare students for grammaticality judgment tests, for multiple choice tests. But for true communication, you have to really change them. You have to really improve their ability. Okay, and the last one is the best measure of one's language proficiency. So this principle is calling for inclusion of more communicative activities or tasks in our exams. We should see that in our final exams, in our school exams, in our university exam, how much do we ask our students to write, for example? We give them a topic, we ask them to write. How much do we include interview? It's difficult, it's time consuming, but anyway, it's very important. Okay. The schools in Nepal, I just had one conference presentation in Nepal when I was a PhD student. It was a very strange country for me to visit. But one beautiful lesson I learned from Nepal. At the end of their high school system, there's a very important interview for high school students. This interview is done by the best teachers of that country in English. And they want to check the speaking ability of the student. Because they have included this important interview at the end of their exams, at the end of the high school, to get their high school diploma, all teachers and students are well aware that good speaking is very important to get that high school diploma. If they want to enter university, they need that high school diploma. So everybody is trying very hard to learn to speak well. I visited a boarding school, very, very small children could speak with me there. I was very surprised that, you know, that Nepal is a highly poor country, okay? But their learners could communicate with a foreigner who visited their conference very well. So this brings me somehow, okay, that I want, because of time, I'm not just asking you to think in your mind that how much in your exams, in your class and schools, you're having controlled questions in your exams, like fill in the blank, short answer, matching multiple choice, true, false. How much do you have free production in your exams, like essays, like open-ended questions, like meaning-based activities, like interviews, okay? Now, these 10 principles I mentioned, they could act as something in management and in corporate, let's say, industry. They are using what's called SWOT analysis. And if you remember in the highlights of my lecture, I mentioned it. These 10 principles, you can check them and you can reflect on your classes, on your university's classes, on your school's classes, even I would say a ministerial level. Ministry of Education can look at these principles, say that, yeah, which principles are well promoted in our schools? So it's a strength. Which principles are not paid well attention? They are mostly neglected or ignored. They are weakness. If you look at the future, if you look at consider the future, what opportunities lie for our schools? For example, this COVID-19 is a threat. It may create new threats. Maybe we used to have very nice classes, but now with I don't know, Adobe Connect, with Zoom, with I don't know, let's say Skyroom, there are many challenges. Many people have connection problems. I know that sometimes you have power cut in your region. So imagine how a lot of learners may have very good excuses that, hey, sir, hey, madam, I can't enjoy your classes because of, for example, this problem. So these principles can help us to see, to evaluate, to critically evaluate our classes. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities that we can capitalize, we can benefit from them? What are the threats? If, for example, more technologies are available to your learners, it's an opportunity. If there's a school that internet access is well within the reach of students, it's an opportunity. If you can, I don't know, connect your class to some schools outside, for example, Kurdistan region, so your students can have a sort of pen pal or e-pal, it's an opportunity. Okay, so these are all can help you to see that, yeah, I'm going to promote, for example, number 10 more. It's a weakness now, principle number 10. So they can really help you to improve, to optimize your own classes with these 10 principles. And I know that in some of these principles you are doing very well based on your own experience. In some other principles that you know, we have different levels of experience, so they could really help us. Okay, I hope that there was something for everybody in this lecture, and I do apologize that I know very little about maybe the context. Hopefully through our students from Kurdistan region, I would get more knowledge about English teaching there. So in my future presentations, hopefully if there's an opportunity, I would give more customized and lectures.
Thank you very much.
Quality is an endless journey. Doctor, just finishing 1 minute. Okay, and thank you for your patient listening. The good news I want to give is that these flamingos are returning to Lake Urmia. You know that Urmia is situated next to a beautiful lake. And this year, you know, it was drying and we all were sad that this lake is vanishing. But fortunately, there have been some steps to revive it. And this year, these flamingos decided to consider this place as their home, okay? This is also just for my Virai Shar company. If we are involved in editing and translation, of course, maybe for outside Iran, we would be very happy. Mostly research articles we do. Okay, so that's all, Doctor, from me.
Thank you very much.
No question, okay.
Thank you very much for Associate Professor Javad Gholami from Urmia University in Iran. It was really interesting, and the topic and the presentation was rich and very beneficial for all. And I'm sure the people here got benefit from it, and maybe there are some questions and comments they want to add. Until they get ready for the questions, I will give a couple of minutes to Mr. Amir to talk. Mr. Amir, the mic, if you open it, you can talk, and then we start questions. You can write the questions either in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we will give you floor to ask Mr. Gholami directly. Baris Kag Amir Farm.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, sir.
At first, I should thank Dr. Gholami for his good presentation, and let me speak with Kurdish.
Okay, thank you.
Rezu salam hay bo hamulaishi. هیوادارم تاکو ئێستا ئێوارێکی خۆشتان هەبوو بێت و هەروەها زۆر خۆشحاڵم کە ئەمشۆ ئەو دەرفەتە دراوە بە من کە لە خزمەتتاندا بم. بەڕاستی وێبینارێکی زۆر ڕێکوپێک و جوان بوو. دکتۆر غوڵامیش وەک کەسێکی بەهێز و بەتوانە، مامۆستایەکی زۆر بەهێز و بەتوانە، توانی ئەو وێبینارەی بە جوانی لە خزمەتتاندا بێ. بەڕاستی زانکۆی ئورومیە چەند ساڵێکە میوانی خوێندکارانی نێودەوڵەتیە، بە تایبەت ئەو خوێندکارانەی کە لە هەرێمی کوردستان دێن بۆ زانکۆیە. ئەوەش جێ شانازیە کە زانکۆی ئورومیان هەڵبژاردۆ و تەشریفیان هێنا و ئەمەش دە خزمەتیان داین. پێم خۆشە وەکو کەسێکی حکومی ئەو پەیوەندیە نەپچکرێ هەردەوامی هەبێ کاک دکتور و هەموو ئەو کەسانەی کە گوێیان لە دەنجی منە. من ئەو کەسانێکەوە بەشدار بوونە لەو وێبینارە چاوم لێ دەکردن، زۆریان بۆ من ئاشنا بوونە. زۆر جێ شانازیە و یعنی بەڕاستی پێی خۆشحاڵم. هیوادارم ئەو پەیوەندە ئاکادمیکە هەر بەردەوام بێ لە بەشەکانی دیکەی زانکۆی ئورومیە کەڵک وەرگیرێ. هەر لێ ڕژرا لەڕێ ئەو وێبینارەوە دەتوانم بڵم کە بەشی زمانی ئینگلیسی زانکۆی ئورومیە یەکێک لە هەرە بەهێزترین بەشەکانە، چون مامۆستاهایەکی زۆر زانستی هەیە وەکو دکتور جەوادی غولامی، وەکو خام دکتور زەرگەرزادە، وەکو ئاغای دکتور ئەلەوینیە و زۆر کەسی دیکە. هیوادارم ئەو کەسانش کە ئەو شۆ لەو وێبینارەی دابوونە کەڵشیان لێ وەرگرت بێ و لەوانەیە کاک دکتور هێندێکیان پرسیاران هەبێت لە خزمەت ئاغای دکتور غولامیدا. من زۆر پێم خۆش نەکاتیان بگرم. وێبینارەکەی دەدەمەوە بە جەناب تو ئەگەر پرسیارێکی شەبێ برایسکۆلەتان دە خزمەتاندایە.
دەست و چاوت خۆش بێ. زۆر سوپاس مامۆستا ئەمیر تۆکمەچی کە بەڕێوەبەری قوتابی و خوێندکارە نێودەوڵەتیەکانە، نووسینگەی قوتابی خوێندکارە نێودەوڵەتیەکانە لە زانکۆی ئورمیە. سپاس بۆی لەگەڵمان بووی. ئێمە دەگەڕێینەوە سەر پرسیارەکە. Okay, we are going back to questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Amir Tokmachi, for your introduction and for joining us tonight. I'll start with one question. I know some people are raising their hands. Dr. Lasgeen Barani, or Assistant Professor Lasgeen Barani from Duhok University. He says, how do you relate these principles to the goals of foreign language learning in the 21st century? Do you think we go for proficiency or for communicative competence?
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Amir Tokmachi, for your nice message. Okay, I could make sense of some of the words. Okay, and that's great to have you here, and thank you for that. Dr. Barani, thank you for your question. Okay, in fact, there is no distinction. Okay, there is no major difference between proficiency and communicative competence, because by proficiency now we do not mean just linguistic proficiency. We mean, in fact, communicative proficiency. So proficiency means that the overall ability to communicate, in fact. So this communicative competence is in fact the main part, the heart of developing proficiency. So I would say that in fact they are synonymously used rather than one replacing the other. So this glocalization is saying that in the 21st century, as the situation is changing, it's up to you to find ways
to translate these principles into action. You may do certain activities based on the local constraints, local factors, local, let's say, aspects of your classes, but keep these principles in your mind. Try to actualize them, okay? But how you do it, how many facilities are available to you, how your learners are, okay? So definitely they are going to shape your let's say, translation of these principles into action. But language proficiency doesn't mean linguistic proficiency. It means communicative proficiency, okay? And that's why if you look at TOEFL PBT and TOEFL IBT, you would see that most of the elements of just language knowledge are eliminated in TOEFL IBT. They are mostly asking for the read it and then answer questions, listen and answer. Even they are integrating language skills. These are very good, let's say, messages for us that similar activities should happen in our classes as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you. Aveen Abdullah raised her hand. Aveen Khan.
Hello, everyone. Thanks to you all for this opportunity, and thanks for dear Professor Javad for this great opportunity. Pleasure to be here. Actually, regarding the paper, I have one question, and the second question is somehow unrelated. My voice clear?
Yes, we can hear.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
My first question is about the first principle presented in the paper. You mentioned teaching formulaic expressions, and in the paper the word native speaker is mentioned. Nowadays, as we know, due to globalization, and as David Crystal stated that now we have world Englishes, and English doesn't belong to one nation. In my opinion, I think the word native speaker or accent like native speaker is not the good choice here. I want to know Dr. Javad's opinion about that.
Okay.
And my second question is about, as we know, for carrying out successful English courses, especially for ESP courses, English for specific purposes, we as a teacher should run need analysis. You know, you should know the needs for learners. Is need analysis procedures the same for general English, I mean English for general purposes?
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
Khan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gholami, because we have many questions, just try to keep it as short as possible.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Abdullah. Ms. Abdullah, I mentioned native speakers not in the sense that we should approximate ourselves. We should, let's say, speak like them. I said that for formulaic expression, that if native speakers are speaking more fluently than non-native speakers, because they have access to larger store of formulaic language. And that is why if we shouldn't get worried if our learners are developing more formulaic language, because that is, in fact, if I speak effortlessly or more effortfully, we can relate it to somehow, for example, say, I'm not joking. When I'm saying I'm not joking, as far as I know, these are all chunks stored together. So without too much thinking, I use it. So you are quite right that with this English, world Englishes, nobody is saying that speak exactly like an American. Even some people say that keep your own accent. It's a part of your own identity. Even a lot of non-natives who go to English-speaking countries, they try to keep a trace of their accents. To say that, hey, don't treat me as a native speaker of English. This is the second language. There was a German father who advised his son that if somebody speaks your language with an accent, that person is one level above you, because already there is another language that is his or her mother tongue. So it means that that person has 2 or 3 windows to look at the world, okay? That's all I could say. Okay. And those principles I mentioned are well true about English classes, about ESP classes. There is one principle in ESP books that it says that ESP methodology, the way we teach English for specific purposes or English for academic, should be no different from general English. Just the content, the scope of language is different between ESP and general English courses. Okay. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mahdi Hassan. Mr. Mahdi Hassan, I'm asking you to unmute. Yes. You can talk, Mr. Mahdi.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Javad. I'm Mahdi, a political advisor in one of the international bodies and a volunteer teacher in the region. دکتر رضا دست شما در نکنه، جلسه بسیار پیشرفته‌ای بود. I appreciate for your encouraging and useful session, and thanks for our positive English teaching icon in the country, Dr. Himdat, for arranging a lot of human development activities there. Dr. Javad, I have a remark and at the same time one thing to add to one of your slides towards the end of your session, which is practicing silence. I believe every English teacher needs to learn about the Italian economist theory, which is, I'm quite sure most of our teachers and you as well, and Dr. Himdat is aware about that theory, which is Pareto's theory. And this is called Pareto's theory or 80-20 theory. It's going to be very short, Dr. Himdat.
Okay.
It's being used in economy and the market a lot. But at the same time, we can use this in communication and teaching too. This theory, 80-20 theory, and I want to have your input about this, to what extent we can use that in teaching. The 80-20 means 80% of the opportunity can be given to students in the class and only 20% of the opportunity to teachers. And I would like to hear about your opinions. What do you think about this
Thank
theory?
you very much, Mr. Mahdi. Thank you. Mr. Gholami.
I'm awfully sorry, doctor. I had again every, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes, just a few seconds, I have a disconnection and then it rejoins, okay? Mahdi, I'm very afraid that I didn't catch your question. Could you please repeat it?
Okay, Mr. Mahdi, if you just repeat it quickly. Otherwise, he was talking about 80-20 rule, but yes, Mr. Mahdi, I want to do it yourself.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Javad. I would just want to know to what extent you're aware of the Pareto's theory, which is 80-20 theory, the fact that 80% of the opportunity in the class can be given to students to talk and only 20% of the opportunity to teachers. So I'm wondering to what extent we can use this in the
I totally agree that.
Okay.
I have had classes that 10% of the class I talked, the students felt that the best class they've ever had was that. So you just act as, you know, that in an orchestra, think about that conductor. He's doing the main job, but it is invisible. The more invisible you become in your classes, the more productive. However, like the dancers, you know that in America Got Talent, you see, for example, some people coming to the stage, but there have been some people in the audience who have trained these people. So the more you act as a hidden, as I say, backseat driver, so you have the choreography, you have the planning for the class. However, your students are acting it. So the more you are doing functioning like that, be sure that you are doing wonderfully, and your students would be very grateful for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor Dr. Fatima sent a question via chat, and she says, don't you think that we have to focus on the 21st century skills to teach at the university level also?
Yeah, I don't get 21st century skills. Yes, if it means welcoming technology, do that. If it means, let's say, having, I don't know, more, let's say, integrating technology in your classes, definitely yes, applications, games, a lot of motivating activities. If it means getting closer to learners' interests and tapping their culture, what's called pop culture, yes, that is really fine, okay? If it means taking your classes really outside the class, you have, for example, a backup class in WhatsApp, in, I don't know, Instagram, such activities, all of them in one way or another, in fact, are realizing one of those principles.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bandar Muhammad, if you can, yes.
Yes, hello, Doctor. Thank you for the interesting webinar. I just have a question to Dr. Gholami. The principles are well applicable to learning and teaching, as you explained very well for us. But I was wondering, how can we relate these principles to testing and assessing students? Because you know that the assessment is part of learning and teaching a language.
Yes, thank you very much. You are quite right. Okay, as I told you, good teaching requires good assessment. If you teach communicatively, but you test based on a group of multiple choice tests, then your students are not going to take it seriously. Even they may get angry at you that they don't do well. So definitely, if you remember, my last principle was about assessment, that assessment includes also free and controlled production. So make sure that in your assessment, okay, that you include elements of essay writing, like speaking activities, speaking based on the book they have covered. You can develop an IELTS test in line with the unit you have taught. If you have talked about, for example, hobbies, you can develop some interview questions for hobbies, and in your exam, you spend 5 minutes with every learner for their speaking part of the exam. I don't know, for a very, for example, elementary level, ask them to write 50 words about the topic. So I would say that, yes, definitely, you need to have a systematic plan for assessment, and principle number 10 asks for good assessment. It says that you can teach their knowledge of language as well. You can teach, you can test multiple choice, but make sure that a big part of your assessment package include. And if we have some exams like national level exams that they are not free production, I think that this community, people like you and I, we should work hard to convince those people that to a little make reforms in their assessment practices. If there's an, I don't know, nationwide exam, if there is a university qualifying exam, so they have to include some elements of free production as part of their exam packages.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have a couple of other questions on the chat. I don't know, with me, it's written Huawei Mate 10 Pro. That's the name of the device.
Yes, yeah, I see that. Yeah, Huawei Mate 10. Okay, yes.
So the question is it a good idea to conduct activities to compare and contrast students' own customs, lifestyles with those of other English-speaking cultures inside classroom? Do you think that's a good idea?
Definitely. Look, there is something called, I'm typing it here, okay, intercultural competence, okay? Intercultural competence.
That question was from Mr. Ali Jabbar Zwair.
Okay, Mr. Ali Jabbar, okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Jabbar, one of the, in fact, they say language competences is intercultural competence. It means that you know your culture well, you know other cultures well. If you look at, for example, business English books, you would see that there are elements of other cultures. You see, many years ago, if you look at, for example, interchange books, headway books, they were mostly about English-speaking countries. But if you look at them now, you see that they have included something from Korea, something from Middle East. Even Headway has got a Middle East version. Instead of Christmas, they talk, for example, I don't know, let's say Fete Festival, okay? I don't know for Fete Festival what to say. At the end of Ramadan, okay, we have it. So they included elements of local culture. And you as a teacher, in fact, it's great if you can have, let's say, your customs, lifestyle, and it's a topic, and also it's an intercultural competence. Most of the people learn English to develop, not just with native speakers, maybe mostly we learn English to communicate with non-native speakers. Imagine people, for example, I don't know Kurdish well, you don't know Turkish very well, so English is a lingua franca. And this requires, a lot of people learn it for business, for tourism, for, I don't know, for trade, commercial purposes. Definitely knowing this intercultural competence, okay, is going to help them to communicate more effectively.
Okay, thank you. I think Mr. Ali is raising his hand if he can talk. He was working in TESOL, Iraq. I don't know whether he's still working there. Mr. Ali, if you want to talk. Mr. Ali, you can unmute your mic.
Hi, everybody. You hear me?
Yes, Mr. Ali.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hamidad. Thank you very much, Dr. Gholami. I would like to say something about the idea of teaching. There is a quotation. I think we hear about that quotation as well. Good preparation, good teaching, good outcomes.
That's right.
Good preparation, good teaching, good outcomes. That means if the teacher prepare himself before coming inside the classroom, that's mean it's going to go to what? To good teaching. And the good teaching is going to what? To good outcomes. The good outcomes is like a solution for the idea of assessment, the kind of the assessment, formative assessment, or summative assessment. It depends on how the idea of teaching, I mean the syllabus, the curriculum, is the teacher is the teacher conduct the course in a good way or in a bad way? If it is a good way, that means it's going to what? Good testing and reflexive to what? To good outcomes for the teaching. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Doctor.
much, Mr. Ali, for joining us.
Thank you, Ali. Ali, I just wrote here, sweat at home or sweat in class. Sweat at home means prepare yourself well for the class. If you get prepared well, Mahdi talked about 80% of the class time for students. If you don't have a plan, how are your students going to engage well with class activities? So you have to plan very well.
It depends on what the in-service teacher. For example, if you are you have a 30 years, like me, I have a 32. So that means going to what? Spontaneity. We don't go to the plant or something like that. So we go to spontaneity, automaticity. You know what I mean, Doctor?
Yes, you don't need to write everything down as planned.
Doesn't need the plan. You are a spontaneity, but you need to prepare yourself before you go inside the classroom.
Okay. Exactly. Of course, that easy planning comes with experience, comes with practice, comes with, let's say, So it means that you have already made the investment. You know, that's why you can easily go. Okay,
Yes, but this the idea. Sorry, Dr. Hamad.
Yes,
but the idea of preparation is like for the novice teacher. Most of the novice teacher need the plan, but not the experienced teachers. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Jamal Anwar from University of Suleimania has written a question. If he is here, he can talk. If not, I'll read his question. Dr. Jamal, do you want to talk yourself? Can you open your mic?
Dr. Is his name the same like me, Javad?
No, Jamal.
Jamal, I'm sorry. Okay,
Jamal Anwar.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Jamal Anwar.
Do you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Jamal.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for this great opportunity. Thank you so much, Dr. Himdad, for arranging these fantastic academic events. Thank you so much for Dr. Javad Gholami. I have a question regarding raising children or children having, do you think that children have a different mother tongue than their own mothers? If so, why? If not, why? Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, Doctor. I didn't get your question. Okay, children having different mother tongue than their mothers?
Yes. Suppose I am raising my child, trying to teach him speak in English rather than speak in Kurdish, the mother tongue.
Yes.
So do you think that this is a good idea, especially nowadays? It's a custom in our region or in our society.
Yeah, I know that. Okay, maybe there are also similar cases in Iran as well. Okay, yeah. I myself personally believe that. Okay, we are not. The concept of mercenary, that people who fight for others. Okay, and or people who serve others. I want to see that if every country, every nation has got some national interests. So I would say that it's not a wise idea to replace the mother tongue with a new language, okay? After all, we hope that English would open new horizons rather than replace. You don't for example, imagine how would you feel if your child cannot communicate well with the uncle, with the grandmother, with the grandfather. So I would say even, that there was something in Sweden many years ago. They took some refugees from Africa and they started very fast immersing them, integrating them with the Swedish language and culture. After some years, they found that these children have a sort of loss of identity. They really don't know whether they are African or they are Swedish. And Swedish children did not treat them as true native Swedish children, because even their appearances showed that they are African by heritage. So then they even recruited some local teachers from Africa, from Kenya, to go there and build upon their mother tongue first, and then build Swedish upon that. So English or Swedish acted as an additional language rather than as a replacement. So I would say that in our region, it's a good idea from a young age to promote learning English. But make sure that your child, my son now speaks very well English, but he's 10 years old, but he speaks Turkish much better than him. He speaks Farsi perfectly, okay? So I'm saying that, okay, that we are, my wife is also a professor in English department, okay? So we're very aware that this child should take a very strong foothold in mother tongue, in the national language used in Iran, and then build English upon that. So we try to make sure that this diet is happening. And if we take the opposite side, from a young age, maybe our kids would be disillusioned by our own country. They would even, I would say that we have to be very careful. If you look at, for example, family and friends books, okay, compare them with the local books. Definitely local books are not at that level. So if you, from a very young age, if you have from a very young age learners who are fond of, let's say, the Western, I don't know, thinking, Western language, Western lifestyle, and we have to consider that most of these books also are promoting, let's say, their values. They are very tantalizing way of life, things, okay, so definitely they are going to affect our children. So I would say that we have to wait for a few years. And if you look at the load of English and Kurdish, I would say that make sure that they develop a certain good ability in Kurdish, and then you build English upon that.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Fatima Ahmad sent a question right now. She says, what about learning 2 languages at the same time? Is the case different?
Definitely, why not? You can have parallel. Yeah, I'm not saying that. Okay, look, there's something called counterbalance design. It means you have 2 triangles facing each other. Imagine Kurdish is the base.
Yeah.
At first, it takes the primary attention, but this triangle is getting less and less. But the other triangle, which is English, the opposite side, at first is less, and it gets more and more. So even there is a stage that there is a balance. Okay. In fact, that's what they did for Swedish, for African children in Sweden. Okay. So little by little, they increased the Swedish element more. So I would say, yeah, why not? There are a lot of people who are learning more than the same time. Their mother tongue, they are developing at the same time. They are learning also English at the same time. There could be some, let's say, conflict between these 2 languages, but little by little, people sort out. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Maybe the last question, Yasin Muhammad. Yes, Mr. Yasin, if you open your mic, please. Yasin Muhammad raised his hand. Mr. Yasin.
All right. So can you hear my voice, Doctor?
Yes, Mr. Yasin.
All right.
Yes, please.
First of all, thank you so much for the time and effort you invested in tonight's session.
Thank you.
Especially the 10 principles from a prolific writer and researcher, Rod Ellis. So, Dr. Javad, my question is related to the course books. You know, I was just interested in your thoughts about the second language course books, because, you know, there are a huge number of commercial course books out there. My question is, to what extent do you think these course books apply the principles of second language acquisition, especially the 10 ones that you mentioned?
Of course, you know that we have a wide range of books, okay, and some of them maybe try to accommodate these principles well. Of course, you know that these principles are mostly for teachers, and definitely material writers play a role in that, but it's mostly up to the teachers to apply them. You can give a great communicative book to a teacher, and the teacher can easily spoil it. You can give a very bad book to a teacher, and that teacher can turn it into a very beautiful piece of teaching, okay? So I would say that teachers are the main agents for implementing, okay, a book. And most of the recently, I mean, latest books, okay, they are even ESP books. Look at the ESP books developed by University Press, by Cambridge University. For example, English for students of medicine, English for students of nursing, civil engineering. Compare them with some common special books, as you say, for general English. You will see that mostly the elements are the same. They have beautiful pictures, good graphics, audios are fine, different accents you have, a lot of highlighting of the language we have, a lot of pre-task, during task, and post-task we have. So I would say that somehow they have been global principles and authors are well aware. However, I would say that at least as far as Iran is concerned, we have locally produced books that maybe some of them have not really taken into account these principles. So it's really high time that we dwell more on these books. For example, I had a meeting with Jack's Richards, okay, in Iran, okay. We had an international conference and I was hosting him for a few days. So I got a lot of tips from him about he's developing, you know, lots of books in for it. Worldwide they are used, okay, and he said that we do have access. For example, I talked about built-in syllabus. You see that we do have access to that body of research. What structures are learned first? What are more demanding? How tenses should be produced? How conditions should be introduced in different units? So they are well aware of those sequences, and they try to, let's say, implement them in developing the materials for their own books.
Thank you very much, sir. I think we have a couple of questions, but just because of time, I have to cut it short because people are with us since
I hope that they've been here and they are fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so
maybe the last question is from Mr. Salah Jibrail from University of Soran, who says, to what extent do these principles or can these principles be helpful? He has written like that, in dominating or controlling stress students that may have in class participation.
Exactly. I saw that question. Very beautiful question. I would say that in fact these are reduced stress management principles. Think about, look, if you promote a lot of grammar from the very beginning, and you expect good grammar from your learners, it's a source of stress. If you keep correcting them very often, it's a sign of stress. If you maximize student talking time, then you are going to give a lot of safe and comfortable pair work and group work activities. So they are having, it's a sort of, let's say, stress-free environment for the learner. So I would say that if you are well aware about multiple intelligences, okay, then you are in fact catering to their stress management. So I would say minimum stress in your class, so students with less anxiety attend class activities.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. With this, I will try to end the session. It was really informative and very interesting, both in the content and the presentation and the slides. And I'm sure if we had more time, there will be. I have seen the videos. There were 2 videos that we skipped just because of time. Otherwise, they were very relevant to the principles that you have mentioned and that Associate Professor Javad Gholami has mentioned. And I was glad that a very good group of EFL teachers, TESOL teachers, and English teachers, and even teachers from other disciplines were with us tonight. And I counted up to 76 participants. 76 participants were with us, going and coming and moving down and up. But the total was 76 participants in different regions and different parts of the country, including Iran also. And it was a very good chance to know Mr. Javad Gholami, Associate Professor from University of Urmia. And I think this would be the first, but not the last. And this will open doors for further networking and further collaboration in the future. And I'm sure there are many more potential areas that we can coordinate, and there are many other webinars that we have in our plans to prepare in the future. And there will be several other activities, maybe joint research, maybe joint publications, maybe visits also. We can arrange them, and why not like similar webinars from our side to University of Urmia University students and staff. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for Mr. Amir Tukmachi also, who joined us from the Office of International Students. Dear participants, thank you very much for your patience with us, and thank you very much for being with us for so long. It's around 1 hour and 15 minutes you are with us, and I didn't feel time passing so smoothly because it was all full of information and very good interaction. And I assure you that MegaMind Plus will go on organizing and arranging similar activities and events and webinars in the near future. We have recorded everything, all the seminars and even Q&A session are all recorded. We are going to send you the link as soon as possible to the groups and to all the participants, including the slides that Mr. Gholami has sent us already and the videos that we could not show. We are going to share them with you, and the contact details of Mr. Javad Gholami are on the screen. You can contact him also personally in case you need further explanations, or maybe you have questions about his work or about the University of Urmia. And we as MegaMind Plus Academy, we are working as a platform in order to gather like-minded people, and we are glad and honored to be with you today in this interesting webinar. Thank you very much, Mr. Javad Gholami, Associate Professor from University of Urmia, Iran. Your last words?
Thank you, Dr. Imdad. It was excellent. Really, you managed the session very well, and for organizing this event. It was a beautiful experience for me. In fact, meeting such wonderful people from Kurdistan region, from Iraq, and also very intellectual questions, okay? And I really enjoyed the professionality of you managing the whole session, and I would be very pleased to meet them more, and I do welcome them if they happen to visit Urmia University and Urmia. It was a great privilege for me to be with this community, and I got very excited today, okay, to be part of this team. Thank you.
Thank you very much again. Thank you very much, participants, and I'm sorry I have to end the session, and see you next Wednesday, maybe in another webinar. Thank you very much again, and stay safe.
Thank you very much. Bye.